get going. Oh, well, I should have looked. Tammy and Seeking Integrity, thank you for all the support you have given me over the past 2 years. You're welcome. And I got to tell you, that's a really nice way to start out, because yeah, I talk to lots of people, trust me, like lots of people. And I don't run out of words. I think my husband would like me to every now and then, but I don't. And so, but to hear when people are feeling supported and that there's meaningful connection, please note, this is, I'm not good at pretending things. So what you see is what you get. Sometimes people probably don't want to hear somebody emailed me the other day and they were like, I'm looking for brutal honesty. I was like, oh, you came to the right person,
Yeah.
and I mean, I do it from a place of, I want people to get this, because, recovery has been so meaningful in my life. I know, we are seeking integrity. We are all striving for that. Personally, I was just at a conference in Texas live. I hadn't been to one in a few years, why? And there was like 800 people, and this was the Texas Association of Addiction Professionals. And one of those things that I love about, coming together as a community is these are all people who are working to help other people be on a different track, and they're doing all kinds of, different things. I got some resources, thank goodness, for teenage girls, because that's always a challenge.
Yeah.
But somebody else was like, he is specifically passionate about traumatic brain injury, and like I was like, great resource. And then there was a guy who, and I love this one too, because we've had other people that chose not to come to treatment or delayed when they really needed to come because they had a pet and they didn't know what to do with a pet. And there's this place, and he's working on having more of them, where they'll foster your pet while you're in treatment and then help you reintegrate when you get done. And I was just like, all of these people are coming, together with creative ways that they're helping support people get help that they need to live on a different way. And so Dr. Rob did a keynote on prodependence, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning. So not all 800 people were there, but a lot. There was a lot. And, he's sharing the message of how, a different lens to look at loved ones, that it isn't you're part of the problem, you're codependent, you're an enabler. He's talking about, if it was cancer, people would bring you casseroles, but if it's addiction, they're like, you're making this happen, and that's just not true. So it's one of those things where having a whole room of people, and he did it in a way where people could hear it, because that is a pretty ingrained message in the therapy community, but he did it in a way where they could hear, that message, and they were all, scrambling up to learn more. And I thought, wow, to make a difference, for people being supported in a different way that have loved ones who are struggling, it was meaningful. So I'm tired, but it was really good.
That's so good. And it's so good to have conferences and meetings starting up again like that. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think there is really something about coming together as a community. I mean, just, I met lots of new people, and I love that. And I got to see some people that I hadn't seen in a long time. And I really appreciate that too. So we have a legitimate question. Is married monogamy possible for those living with SLA? Yes.
Yes.
But talk about how we can, how the work with the guys that are, and we do residential, so it's absolutely far more compacted, than, trying to, come up with a plan and do this over 12 to 24 months. But, and it's a lifetime journey. But, talk a little bit about that with people who have struggled with infidelity, how they can choose to live a different way.
Well, I tell all the spouses and partners that I work with this real common question, like, will he stay in recovery? Will this happen again? And it's up to what he chooses. He has to choose recovery. He has to choose to reach out to people when he has thoughts or things, especially early recovery. And then if there's any kind of issues going on. But yes, it's possible. And we have seen many, many couples remain together. Some have to split for a little while and get their own help and come back together again. But yes, it's absolutely possible. But you have to work it. I'm in recovery for a couple of different things, and it's really easy to have my mind wander off to something in a minute, or if I get upset or something like that. But I call somebody, or I have to bring me back down and say, I don't want my life to be like that again. So it's absolutely possible.
Yeah, and a relationship that is in true connection is very different than the dopamine, excitement of anonymous sex or whatever it is, affairs, high risk behaviors. But the connection, it's so much more meaningful. It's so much deeper. A sex or porn addict may find it boring at first, but they're also terrified, I think, of having to be vulnerable with another person in a real and meaningful way. When you can compartmentalize and keep things away, and you're always kind of thinking about the next acting out, so you're never really fully present because you're thinking about, well, I've got this side thing over here, or whatever. So yeah, lots of people choose to live that. Now there are people that choose open relationships, and if everybody does and everybody's on the same page. Our experience with sex addicts, though, even if you open the parameters up a bit, they still can't live within those boundaries. There's always, it's always that, like, I need to go a little farther, so we've agreed to this, but I'm going to do that anyway. So it really ultimately is what you want, and how it hurts loved ones to not have that trust and safety. So if you ultimately care about this person, and I also think, and I'm rambling, I'm sorry, but I also think if you just want to have it be a free for all, don't get married. Just don't get married, and be upfront with everybody. I'm just here for the party, and I'm not going to be in any kind of relationship. So that would be, have some integrity, at least, that I'm going to do what I want to do. But what an empty, I think, at the end of the life with no one to really be on the journey with you. I think it would be sad, but at least you're being honest and upfront with people. I just want to do what I want to do, and I don't want to I want to selfishly not care about anybody.
Right.
So
And hurt people along the way. So it's just that's where we see a lot of the guilt and shame that comes up, of really looking back and knowing how what a tremendous impact or devastation it was to somebody that they really cared about. So it does work.
Yes. Okay, the next question is, hi there, I'm 6 months since Discovery Day and almost 6 months sobriety, working 12 steps, seeing a psychotherapist specializing in sex addiction. My biggest struggle right now is turning to empathy when in talks with my wife, especially when I feel rejected, since she keeps telling me I'm not doing enough. And I want wants temporary separations, etc. I've been reading the book Help or Heal, but wondering what you suggest is the best way to boost my recovery work to be a different person.
Well, that's not an uncommon question. One of the things that I would throw out there is, in talking to the therapist that you're working with, is to see if there could be some couples therapy work together. Maybe not with that therapist, but a couples therapist that could actually sit down and talk with both of y'all to see what's going on and to see how you interact with one another. Being in recovery is great, and things like that, but it's still showing empathy and communication with one another. If that wasn't built before, then it's like a whole new chance to build that. I was telling the client a while ago that there's always an I and a me in a relationship, but what you want to get to is a we and an us with that. And a lot of people were not raised to know and understand how to communicate or to show emotions or feelings or empathy for anyone. So I would look at talking with my therapist of what do I do with it, or possibly couples therapy. What do you
Yeah,
think?
and with all due respect, 6 months is great, but 6 months compared to, I don't know how old you are, and it doesn't really matter, but
Right.
you're an adult. So there's decades of doing things differently, just like Karen was saying. So, however you were raised, whatever coping skills you have, this is a whole different language. You are not going to magically know how to do empathy. What I hear is a partner who's fearful, and understanding, I hear the fear, that you are concerned that I'm not doing it fast enough, so I'm going to relapse, or I'm going to revert to those things. I hear that is empathy, just understanding and hearing that. You can't fix it. All you can do for today, you can't go back, you can't undo what you've done. And it was hard and bad and traumatic and all of those things. But what you can do for today, I'm doing my recovery work. I take this seriously. I'm showing up and doing the things that I can do so that I can become, the person that you can trust. But the trust for partners, and Dr. Rob says this all the time. I mean, that's usually, 12 to 24 months behind, your recovery date. So you've got 6 months. So just think, you knew all along you were doing all this stuff. Your partner had discovery. That's like, that's hard, and
Yeah.
it turns the world upside down. And now all of a sudden partners are going like, how do I know that this is safe? If you haven't done a formal therapeutic disclosure yet, that could also be a really good thing. That said, your partner needs the support for not therapy, but it's supportive, care, so that the two of you can show up and do a real job with the formal therapeutic disclosure. But that can help set a foundation, for doing things differently. Two more things. We have a work group on seeking integrity, that is the couples healing from betrayal work group. And there's grieving losses together. How do we communicate? What is healthy sexuality going to look like for us? Dr. Susie LeBrock leads that, and it starts this month. I can't remember, the 24th. Don't hold me to that.
Yeah.
She is amazing. Yeah, she does a great job with it. Once a week, 2 hours for the two of you. It's a smaller group than some of our other work groups, but that could be a really good next step for you as well. And there's a betrayed partner work group that starts early October. Don't hold me to the dates. We've got so many work groups now, I can't keep track of dates.
Right.
And then actually one more thing, the Out of the Doghouse work group. That's how to rebuild trust, how to change the language. And it's a work group. Now, here's the difference between a work group and just reading a book. When you read a book, you take it in from what you're reading. When there's a work group, it's like you're getting input from other people. They're all live facilitated. They're all online. They're low cost. But to get the input and support to look at things differently can be really valuable. So all of those could be really useful. Hopefully your partner's here too. But otherwise, this recording will be on sexandrelationshiphealing.com tomorrow. But all of those can help. But right now, this is still really raw for partners. So just understand you're doing the best you can, and the partner's going to have some reactions. You can't magically make it all go away, although it'd be really nice for everybody if you could.
And remember, D-days, as everybody refers to it, those are also trauma days. That's where the trauma in their life comes up and merges with the trauma they just found out that, who is this person? I don't know them. I've been with them 20 years and I don't know them. And the hurt and all of that merges together. So Tammy gave great suggestions of things to do with that. But it takes time. That's all it's going to do, is take time. And for everybody to stay in recovery.
Yeah. I know for sure you can make it worse by going back to previous behaviors. That's the absolute worst thing you can do. But otherwise, one day at a time. And I've shared this. When I'm up in Seattle, I found a group, a 12-step group that I go to, that's called Daily Reprieve. So those have been in the Seattle Ballard area, and I love that because that's what we have today. I have today. I have years, but I only have today too. And I'm very keenly aware of that, and not, trying to pretend like, oh, I got this all wrapped up with a bow, because I don't. I need my program just as much today as I did day one. So, okay, next question. My question is, do addicts love to live in the drama zone? I cause so much drama at times. My spouse scolds me like a child, and it's happened so much, it's frustrating, but I realize that I caused the drama. And every time I say that's the last of it, I cause it to happen again. I take a deep sigh when it happens and get frustrated to keep having this conversation. But then I think, why am I continually poking the bear with the proverbial stick? Am I overthinking the question when the answer is simple because I choose to do so? Or is there something just missing in me that causes me to bring this down on myself? Great question. Thank you for asking that. So, thoughts on that, Karen?
Actually, Timmy I was trying to move up and keep rereading it because there was so much with that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, I'll start and she'll chime in. So we talk about the chaos, and I do think that, like, we are so used to living in chaos because we've caused it in our addiction. Like, I lived in chaos. I have very little tolerance for it now. Like, I like to live on my serenity beam. It's not 100%. Sometimes it's, the balance beam, and I'm a little tippy. But it's one of those things where, like, I like the serenity and I don't crave that chaos. But I always think, was it serving? Karen and I have talked about this. When clients are lying about everything, it's serving a purpose. What is it that you're looking for that to do? And if you're looking, like, if somebody's in your space and it's uncomfortable because you're being vulnerable, I'm just making this up because I don't know, but it's great to explore. But I'm thinking, wow, maybe you and your spouse are being, a little more vulnerable. Things are being a little more real. So that feels uncomfortable. What can I do? Poof, create drama. And then, it absolutely stops someone from getting closer because next thing you know, you're getting scolded, which, doesn't feel good. You, like Karen said, it's we, not me. She's not your parent. You're not her child. So being in a relationship and in a more equal footing, which it takes time to get back there, because as Dr. Rob says, you're in the doghouse to start with, but just, you can get there. Ultimately, the idea is, as I've shared this a number of times, Dr. Stan Tatkin's podcast with Dr. Rob on sex, love, and addiction, which you can find on this website, is talks about the two of us together against the world are so much better. It's healthier for us. It's just, everything is better if it's the two of us. And when you shift that dynamic by, self-sabotaging, that's causing the relationship to be out of unity. And somebody's one up, somebody's one down. You end up being one down because now now you've changed things to, I've been naughty at, using the child language. So I would love to have you explore that. Troy Love, I wrote to Todd Love earlier today. So Troy Love is doing the attachment wounds, and it starts this month. I can't remember when, again. But gosh, it would be great to look at what's going on, for you, the voices of shame and all of that. The inner child work will start again in October. Both of those could, if you've got some sobriety, you're doing that, then exploring some of those options or some of those deeper things of what's really, what's the messages you're sending. That could be really useful. So check those out on the seekingintegrity.com site. So now that I've gone on, so what are your thoughts?
I love the different workshops you're talking about. I think it's easy I love the word that you use, self-sabotage. So if I'm doing okay and I get attention from my spouse or partner and I poke that bear because I want attention, a lot of times, don't mean the words this way, but it's like tugging at mama's pants. I need attention. I need attention. If I'm not getting it the way I think that I need to have it, because that wound is there, that attachment wound is there, or abandonment wound, then I'm going to keep poking until something happens. And so I will create drama. What's going to draw the attention? Think of a child on a floor in a grocery store having a temper tantrum. And I've talked to many clients that have described it just like that, is I need it so bad. And I don't know how to get it because I was never taught how to have attention in a healthy way. And so I'll poke the bear and I'll get some attention with that. So I think you're absolutely right, Tammy.
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of the interesting and kind of the flip of like, oh, somebody's getting too close, so I'm going to push you away. And Karen's is like, I'm not getting enough, so I'm gonna get your attention, come hell or high water, So, and both would create the chaos,
Right.
and drama. You call it drama. Like I always lived in chaos, so I always, remember Pigpen from Charlie Brown, with the dust, like I felt like, that was chaos all around me, and I don't live like that anymore. And I'm telling you, you don't have to either. So this is, while it's problematic, you're aware of it. And I love that you're asking the questions, and there are positive things that you can do, and every time you choose differently, you go, I chose differently here, and I like this, I like this better, so that, that positive reinforcement for doing it differently. So, but here's the other thing. Go ahead.
Instead of self-sabotage, it's okay to say, I feel like I'm lonely here, or I feel like I need some help or attention. It's being real. It's being in your integrity and saying that out loud. So.
Or you feel like this is getting to be too much, and so I need to take a break. I mean, like whatever is going on, like taking the read of you. But one of the things that I don't say is this is the last time I'm ever going to do that, because I mean, I don't say that about my recovery. Like I today have chosen not to do that, but I can't make promises like that to myself or to anyone else. So I'd rather go, I'm going to do the best I can to not do this again. And what do I need to change in order to not do that? And then I'm not creating a situation where I feel like poop. I'll use the nicer word because here I go again. What is wrong with me? I mean, I can get into all of that, and that's the Troy Love stuff, with the the voices of shame, and the judge of like you're never going to be good enough, or the politician you need to look at. I love his work. It's so helpful.
Amazing.
So check it out. Yeah. Okay, next question. My spouse says he claimed to be an addict for me, but is healed. Addicted to nicotine, opioids, prescriptions, and one-time borderline to porn. Hasn't returned and realizes addictive personality and good faith worked with me to move forward to a better marriage. He agreed to enter a sex addict program. Says he now felt or says now how he felt or saw himself. It's probably not how he saw himself. Okay, got it. Took the seeking integrity test, and the results, he could be at risk because of past, aka the AA theory of counseling treatment. Says God healed. Y'all want what are our thoughts on that? So I was just sharing with somebody, like the 12th step is now my favorite, having had a spiritual awakening, and this is the 12th step. So if those of you that are new, take what you need and leave the rest. But for me, that got me on that serenity beam. Whatever the label was or isn't, the tools, Kristen Snowden wrote a book, I'm looking for it, Life Anonymous. And whether you claim an addict label or not, that book is how to live the 12 steps without being an addict. So it's good living materials. I honestly, and I've been doing this a while, and I know Karen has too, I don't know anybody who's been magically healed. I honestly believe, that for those of us, that have a higher power, that God uses people. It's like using doctors, like I don't, if I've got something medically wrong, I go get the help because I believe that people are trained to do what they are trained to do so that they can help me. So I look for the resources to help. I guess if you see somebody who's completely different, because it's not just about stopping the problematic behavior, it's living differently. And if you see that, then hallelujah, great. Great. But I think it's, if you are not seeing those transformations, I'd be suspect.
I would be too. I think because there's such a pattern, an addictive pattern of behavior. It's like it's the whack-a-mole game where you jump from one thing to another thing to another thing. And that means there's something wrong inside. Not that somebody's a bad person, but that they have a wound that I call or a disturbance inside that needs help. And they keep escaping to medicate that help. So it's interesting that it talks about a test or an assessment or something like that. But this is an addictive pattern of behavior that it seems like I would be concerned about returning to any one of those things unless there's true help that's sought out in this case. Because, it's like if this one doesn't work, well, let me try the next one. Oh, let me try the next one. I was the kind of person that was like, is everything an addiction? Well, yeah, because I was an addict. So everything became an addiction. So
I made the mistake of saying to somebody in the field, there isn't a 12-step program for that. So it was like, I was blowing it off and that person said, doesn't mean you're not an addict. And I was like, oh, so I was like busted, and I was in recovery, and I was like, but I was like, oh, there isn't a 12-step program for that. And there's, there's so many different 12-step programs, but again, Life Anonymous is about using the 12 steps in a, I don't have to identify as any form of addict. It's just, here's good living tools. So but I think it's more about what do you need for you with healthy boundaries, whatever, with him. What do you need for your safety? I say this all the time: physical, emotional, financial, spiritual. What do you need to take care of you, so that regardless of what he's doing or not doing, you've got some serenity and peace and joy. So
because there's something that you're recognizing and something that you see in him or her, whichever way it is that you see, and your gut's probably not wrong.
Yes, great idea. Trust your gut and not. I say this all the time too. It's like if the lips are moving,
they're talking. There
truth is not there. So okay, my spouse says ugly things and even weaponizes my past rape. Oh my gosh, cannot understand why I don't want sex when he does this. Denies sex addiction and no recovery. Any suggestions to get him to get my lack of desire and not trying to hurt him by withholding sex?
Well, first
I have to start. Let's start with the not hurt him by withholding sex.
Right. This is a person I'm picturing. The very first statement you made says ugly things and even weaponized my past rape. That's called abuse.
Rape.
That's called abuse. When somebody is using a trauma that you had to stir things up or to go against you and all of that. So right there, it tells me a whole lot. And that's no one deserves to be abused in any way, mental, physical, emotional, sexual, in any way at all. And I support you in getting some coverage, some support, some whatever, so that you can help set some boundaries and be stronger. And you don't have to agree to do what's going on, because you're just receiving abuse all the way around with it. Just opinion, but you can tell I'm passionate about that one.
I'm hardly ever rendered speechless, and I hurt that he weaponizes your rape. I've had my purse stolen and it was devastating. I felt so violated. So, that you were raped and then he's using it against you, beyond comprehension. And then you don't want to hurt him by withholding sex. Dr. Rob says all the time, why would you ever have sex with someone you don't trust? That's like walking down the street and going, it's almost like the rape, and it's not exactly, but it's almost like the rape. You're having random sex with somebody who's not trustworthy. So why would you, I invite you to care for yourself. He's not willing to do anything to help himself or you, or be in that, what we were talking about earlier, being in the we, that just is abuse all the way around. So I encourage you to really get support to help you create safe boundaries for yourself.
Right. I totally agree. Y'all can, anybody listening, you can tell Tammy and I are extremely passionate about that. Hmm. Okay.
Okay. If the addict has had one affair partner on and off for 8 years and has had no other sexual partners, no other physical contact with others, he acted out with porn and live web. Would this be more SA or sex and love addict? He told his therapist he was with her as he wanted to feel that he was still attractive and wanted.
That's called
Oh,
sex.
BS. Yeah.
I'm still attractive and I wanted it. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
called sex addiction. That's not about love. It's not, we're not talking about love here as our relationship. We're talking about sex, the best I can read it. On and off again for 8 years.
8 years.
Mhm.
He aged, the affair partner aged. So yeah, he could have turned to you to validate, his attractiveness. He could have worked on his relationship with you in order to be closer. So that's justification, denial, lying, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, and you know what? At the end of the day, yeah, I disagree that it's sex and love addiction. It's, that's sex addiction. So whether it's one partner, and honestly, I know for some people that's almost harder because then there's that emotional component, with the acting out partner where it's longer term than it is if it's, in Vegas, anonymous sex or whatever. So I'm sorry for you. And I really hope it isn't someone that, so there's a double betrayal, of a friend or relative or something, as the affair partner too. So, but regardless of the label, what's he doing about it now?
Sure.
Just labeling it and justifying it, it doesn't help. So,
And I would be interested, Tammy, if I was this person, is wondering why would I just believe there's only one person? Is there more information there and not to, I mean, seek it out and get some support from somebody that can help support you with that. But that is sex addiction. If that's the
yeah.
question, that's the answer. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and acted out with porn and live web. So I don't know if it was, if it was the affair partner with cameras, which it could be, but it could also be cam girls, cam boys, whatever, as well. So there's more to that story. Hopefully he's working with a qualified professional who's given him, there's comprehensive assessments to really identify things. But yeah, this is one of those I would not believe what he's saying until you have gone through the process of formal therapeutic disclosure, and he's done a good job of preparing his timeline, all of that information. Then what he says is partial truths. Okay.
Right.
I'm struggling with my essay doing the recovery work for me versus doing it for him, for himself. Is that something that comes later in recovery? He is really trying, but when I hear him say he will do it whenever I need, I'm looking for him to say, I want to be a better man. That's why I'm doing it.
So who's in recovery?
Well, so I know, but how many of the guys that come to our treatment program are doing it for, to get out of trouble, to doing it for their spouses? So there is that. Hopefully, you didn't indicate how long. If this is early in recovery, the first few months, I would be, honestly, I'd probably be giving him the list of here's everything I need you to do for your recovery to show me that you're, like I would want to see the calendar on, if you don't have young kids, on the fridge of here's what I'm doing for my recovery every single day. Great. That would help build trust. If you got little kids, don't do that.
That is one of the things that we talk about when planning aftercare, is to have a joint calendar so that everybody has what they need to do, when they're going to be in a meeting, what's going on, and as well as to allow the spouse or partner to be able to add on that calendar, hey, these are things that I need to do, so that, again, you're talking about sharing. You're talking about coming back together again. And maybe just one day, whoever the spouse or partner is they may want to take a day off. They may want to go do something fun. And that way you're staying connected and accountable for the recovery work that you agreed to. So I always suggest a joint calendar where it's listed, and or at least they go over it once a week if there's kids around, and agree what's going to happen that week and follow up with it.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to have a conversation about what do you visualize for our relationship. Somebody said, and I thought about it. I wish I should write down who says what, but it was one of our webinar hosts, and it was like, why wouldn't you want the very best relationship, for yourself and for your partner? Like, and I was like, oh, that is true. So how do you get from where you are now to that? It's by doing the work. It's for the addict to be doing the work. So, I think part of it is you may need to articulate, have a communication when it's not a contentious moment, and say, what I'm hoping for is that you will start, taking this on, and you will start to want the recovery. And here's another lens of it too. People ask when early, they come to 12-step, and this goes around the table. So they say, how long do I have to come here? Until you want to. And so there is a shift, and it is when I want to have, in the readings, it's if you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it. That's the shift. Is I want what the people that I saw in recovery, they had it, and I sure didn't. And so I was willing to do the work, to gain that. And I have, there's something in the 12 steps that we call the promises, and it lists a bunch of things, and all of them have come true in my life, but it was by doing the work. It isn't just going to meetings. It was working the steps. So working with a qualified professional, doing the drop-in groups, doing the webinars, it's immersing ourselves in a different way of living. It's a different language. I can tell when somebody's in 12 step, they'll say something, I'll go, they're in 12 step, because we use a different language. We look at the world a little differently, and it's a good thing, because it sure wasn't, the way we were living before. So I think one of the things that Dr. Rob, and I mentioned at the beginning with codependence, we're not going to pathologize you for caring and wanting to help your partner. But I think it's okay for you to say, it's not for me to carry the load. And so I'm looking for you. I'm happy to, help you come up with a month-long plan, but then I need you to implement, or something like that that really works for you, so that you're not in that, off balance, parental feeling role. So thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's real common to have somebody say, in early recovery or not really being in recovery yet, that I'm going to do it for my spouse or partner. And that's one of the questions usually that comes up. In a little bit of work, a little bit of time, is they usually raise up and will say, I have to do this for me. My life has been insane, and I have to do it for myself. Then you've got it both going. You've got, yes, I love you, and I want to have a better life and not do this anymore, blah, blah, blah. But you have to want it inside, or you'll never make it happen, because being in recovery is a life event. And the other thing is wanted to add in is also the word sponsor. Is, talk to a therapist, talk to a whatever, talk to a sponsor, that can help. So if the work's not happening, then the work's not going to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and what I hear you talking about too is, if the enticement or the pressure is always external, rather than I've internalized this because I know that I want a better life, and I deserve to have a better life. And if I'm doing better, then all of my relationships are in a much different place. And again, going back to I don't want the drama, I don't want the chaos. I want to have good relationships. I believe that I deserve to have that. That was a whole journey unto itself, believing that I was worthy of, that took some work for me. But if you're doing the work, you're hearing those voices, you're hearing people say those things, and you start to have hope and believe that they can happen for you too. And they can.
Yeah. We see it every day.
Okay. Is compartmentalization for an SA just coping skill that allows them to justify acting out and hurting their partner?
There's two different things with that. There are people that compartmentalize everything because they've had a lot of trauma or things in their lifetime. And I call it the trash compactor. They have to keep pressing it down and pressing it down and pressing down, which then can lead to a behavior to try to medicate, which would be acting out sexually or drinking or drugging or whatever. So that piece I see a lot is tied together. But is it just a coping skill? It can be a coping skill until it doesn't work anymore. Until it's like I have a hole inside of me with all this pain and everything, and I keep trying to fill it with all this stuff. And the truth is, it's an inside job. The only way you can fill that hole is if you're the person that's acting out, is to learn the tools, and you can't put people in there. You can't put food in there. You have to learn the tools so you can help to heal inside yourself. And that's a lot of focus that we work on. But that hole can easily start, or that compartmentalization as a child, a very young child, when I can't take what I'm hearing or something's happening.
Or there wasn't safety, the adults weren't safe, or then, there wasn't emotional support. And compartmentalization is not unique to just sex addiction. I guess Karen said, food, food, drug, it doesn't matter what it is, that is part of it is, keeping those silos, from touching each other. But what happens with discovery is, guess what? Those compartments, the silos broke, and there's a hot mess everywhere. So, is it justification? It's the lies that we tell ourselves that as long as I keep these things, those silos, and my partner doesn't find out, as long as I'm doing this and it doesn't really matter, or I deserve to do this, or whatever lie we're telling ourselves, as long as my partner doesn't find out, and I've been doing a really good job of keeping it compartmentalized, so like I can keep doing this, then it doesn't matter. And so, like Karen said, when all of those compartments fall apart, then the shame, the guilt, all of that, and having to confront those really ugly feelings, is challenging. So I always say addiction is a reason, not an excuse. So it doesn't, oh, I'm an addict, so I get to go hurt everybody. No, it's why I did it, and I hurt myself along the way. But we can learn tools to do things differently, so we don't have to continue that destructive pattern.
Agreed.
Okay, next question. Spouse denies addiction. It was all in the past, even though he was playing sexually explicit games in March. That wasn't too long ago. He says he will wear, he will not wear addict shame or label, and won't do long, hard recovery. I'm working on myself, though, so frustrated with him. Ideas?
Yes, I would continue working on yourself to build some boundaries. And because there's nothing here that's telling me that there's a lot of recovery going on.
No, there's zero recovery, because in recovery, you would have to accept that you have an addiction, and there's a label that this person does not want. So there's no recovery. There's, it's to the best of your knowledge, the behavior has mostly stopped, but March, there's a cycle of addiction, and some people can go, 90 days or 100 days or whatever, but, and often, as Karen mentioned earlier too, it's like, but now I'm eating, or I'm, gaming, or I'm, whatever else, that is compulsive, smoking, vaping, we're a non-smoke, non-vape facility, and there's a reason. So yeah, I 100% healthy boundaries for you, so that, and it isn't about negative consequences to be punitive to the addict. It's about, what do you need for your safety? Like I mentioned earlier, your physical, emotional, financial. People forget that, and spiritual. What do you need for? Because you deserve, regardless of what he's doing, you deserve, to have that safety, for you. So, oftentimes addicts start bumping into those boundaries and don't like that. then they try to manipulate and, get beyond them. So holding your boundaries, sometimes they'll change, but I mean, I sub in on the betrayed partner groups regularly, and some of them just get to the end of their rope and go, he's not willing to change. I deserve to live a life that's different. And so they choose a different way of proceeding. So
and I think the interesting word from this is I don't want the label of shame and guilt, and I won't do long, hard recovery. Just that itself says someone, not you, but your spouse needs some more support in his recovery efforts, in my opinion.
yeah, but he doesn't want it. Like
Right.
you can't support somebody. You can't help them. And a 12-step is volunteer. If you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it. And this is the person that's going, nope, don't want any of that. I want to continue to do what I want to do. Me, rather than doing what's good for our relationship.
There you go. There you go.
So I'm sorry, but I'm glad you're here. Okay. I have a question. I left someone over 8 years ago, and I have been single over 8 years to focus on myself and live. And I've been going from job to job thinking a different field would be better, but then I run into difficulty in it and quit and try a new field. Why can't I stick to the same field? I know Brene Brown says that there may be multiple fields that we're good at, and we should work at one job and do the interests in our spare time. But I still feel like I may never find what I'm good at doing. A lot of times I feel I'm good at nothing because I get distracted and deeply depressed and unable to continue the job. Should I work in mental health if I want to be a therapeutic setting and have studied mental health 8 years? Do I do my own issues? Is working in therapy similar to getting therapy at all? No. Too many therapists come into this field trying to work out their own issues. Please, I haven't even finished the question, but I see this all the time. People are there trying to do their personal work, rather than do anyway. So I've tried studying court reporting, and I'm not sure I can focus enough for that. I've also tried customer service and hated that. I'm tired of switching careers. How do I stop? I have to tell you, just from reading this, this is with all due respect and just reading this, have you been tested for ADHD? I mean, honestly, I hear the inability to focus and center, don't you? Do you wonder?
I do.
I would love, go ahead.
I would love this person to seek someone out. I mean, regardless of therapy or whatever, seek someone and ask that question. More of a person that could do a diagnosis to see if that's it. And then the other thing is, instead of hopping places and trying different things, it began with when you left someone over 8 years ago and have been single. So was there any type of support, help that went along with that event that occurred 8 years ago? Is this still a part of the grief and loss process that you're spinning and that type of thing? Because loss of a relationship is loss. It's grief and loss, just like if somebody were to pass away and things like that. So I would want to sit down with somebody, regardless of your knowledge, and sit down and really talk to them about it and tell them what you're doing and what's going on, and to see if there's some testing you could get so you can maybe hone in on that. And possibly there are a lot of people out there that do some job coaching type things that may be able to sit down and do an assessment with you and see what you really want to do. So just
and there isn't one right answer. I think, I mean, there are probably a small percentage of people that are absolutely, they knew when they were growing up, this is exactly what I want to do, and I'm going to do it, forever. And they're happy doing that. I really think the minority of people. I can tell you for sure that Karen and I, when we were growing up, had no clue we were going to be in the addiction field. Now, actually, I probably did know I was going to be in the addiction field, but it was on the using side.
That's right.
Field, and even this work, I mean, who knew? But is it wonderful every step of the way? No, there's hard stuff for both of us, in our day-to-day work, and that's okay. What I also think is, there's work, and hopefully that you've got some passion and joy in that. But yeah, my extra stuff, the stuff that's in my outer circle of my life, are the things that are really meaningful to me. And I love what Karen was talking about with the grief and loss. It feels like there's that hole in your soul and you're looking to fill it with, different jobs and all of these things. So I would invite you to slow down, get tested for ADHD, work with a really good grief person. And I know some, so feel free to email me, Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com, to see about doing some of that work. Now, if mental health ends up being the field that you go into, do it, but do it with the support that you've done all the work that you need to do and continue to get support. The therapists that end up with ethical dilemmas, that end up with their license in jeopardy, are the ones that aren't taking care of themselves, and make really poor career and life choices. So, it's like we always say, you put your oxygen mask on first. You got nothing to give if you're, if you're passed out on the plane. So,
and I'll also add this: there's always been a saying forever, being a therapist, that every therapist needs a therapist, because we're taking in all of this information, all of this hurt, all of this pain day after day, and hearing it, and you have compassion and empathy and everything else, but it can still stir up, again, grief and loss. It can stir up the trauma that's inside every one of us as human beings. So I still go with the thing of every therapist needs a therapist. Maybe not every day, but at least to be able to see and get some things out.
Yeah. And I'm not a therapist, but I can tell you for sure, like there are days when I go, come hell or high water, I'm going to my 12-step meeting, or I've got people like I can call Karen. I have got people I can debrief with, like call Dr. whatever. I always know I'm in a little bit of trouble when I get a phone call and I want somebody so badly, to accept help, and they don't choose it. And I care too much. Like I'm hanging on to that residual. Then I'm going like, I need to get it back in my gratitude. I need to take care of me, because I can't save anybody. I can't, I can be here and be a resource and help people that want help. I absolutely am here, to help, but I can't save anybody. Okay. Next question. Does it really get better? Heck yes. I did betrayal and doing recovery work continually for years since. Our life is shit. I feel like I'm living in a box, which is getting smaller and smaller. My wife seems miserable. Most of the conversations we have are about how I'm not getting it and how messed up in the head. It's selfish, but I'm so tired of this life, and I'm sure she is too. You've been doing this work for years. This to me is like, you haven't had the right help. This is like you, like for years, you guys should be in a very different place. So to me, there hasn't been enough of the right help and support for either of you, to be, and Eddie Caparucci did and you can email me, Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com. But Eddie Caparucci did a webinar, and he was really brave, but he talked about when partners get stuck. And so if you are really doing the work, but I hear you're miserable too, so I'm not sure. But if you're really doing the work and the partner is still stuck, that's a different scenario. But, to me, maybe the couples healing from betrayal in a work group might be a fit for the two of you. Maybe some grieving losses together, talking about communication. What do you need? One more idea. Dr. Rob does a one-time 2-hour expert consultation for couples. And when, like, one couple had been to 4 different therapists over a 2-year period of time, and they were stuck. And Dr. Rob was able to help them identify the issues that they were struggling with and give them each and both guidance for moving forward. And I've stayed, mostly in communication, and they're on a different journey. So if you would like information, it's a one-time, it's not treatment or therapy, but to get pointed in a different direction could be really helpful for the two of you. So thoughts, Karen?
I agree.
Okay. Last question. We're gonna get it. Okay, so I'm a male addict. I'm in recovery for about 3 months. I'm same-sex attracted, and my wife doesn't want me to have any outside contact with men between 20 and 50, ages 20 and 50. My betrayal was not acting out with another person. I was watching porn. We have not done full therapeutic disclosure. Is it a reasonable boundary for her to ask? I end up feeling resentful and vulnerable about her managing my recovery. That's a great question. What are your thoughts, Karen?
Well, what I'm reading is that somebody is saying that they're in recovery for about 3 months, but they're watching porn. And
No, they aren't. But when they were watching porn, it was same sex. But the spouse, his wife, does not want him to go to meetings and have outside contact with males because the porn was same sex attraction.
I would be worried about him being in recovery if he didn't have males that he could talk to. There's all different kinds of groups. There's a online group of people that may be married to a spouse, to a female, but they have sex and they like to look at males. There's even an online group of men that have come together to actually talk about it that are still with their spouses and things like that. So I just think there, and again, there's no full disclosure yet that's occurred because you've been 3 months. So I'm not sure what boundaries she's looking for because I don't know exactly what's coming out in the disclosure. Maybe
well, what you don't indicate is what support is your partner getting. So if she is just ruminating about, oh, he's going to go to a meeting and act out with the men there, or be sitting there thinking the whole time how attracted he is to them. Honestly, if you are, then it's absolutely something to talk about. I'm struggling with this. I mean, we call it out in our meetings and go, I'm really struggling with this. So Karen's right. There are specific meetings, that can be supportive for males in a heterosexual monogamous, wanting to be in a monogamous relationship, but have, attraction. But you can't change your arousal template. You can choose who you act out or not act out. You can choose how you live your life, and you can choose to live monogamous with your wife, but as Dr. Rob has talked about on previous webinars too, you can't make an attraction just magically go away. It's there, but we know lots of couples where, he loves his wife, and wants to stay in that relationship, and for a variety of reasons chooses that, even if there is, and there's lots of heterosexual guys that have acted out with men, and just it's sex addiction. It isn't about relationship, so. And if you're watching porn, there's no relationship in that. It's like, that's images, it's body parts. It's not, you haven't gone on a date with a male,
Right. Yeah. And you have power and control with porn. You can turn it off and turn it on. And so you're also pulling up another piece that usually goes with addiction, is about power and control as they escalate in their addiction process. So there's a lot of different things on this, but I still go back to, there's no therapeutic disclosure, and not knowing what's really there, I think would be important to get to a place of having support for each person with a good therapist to end up creating that disclosure process where you are safe and he is safe, and that you find out if there's anything else, what's going on with this whole process here. So,
but as Karen said, both of you, each of you having qualified professionals, this is not a do-it-yourself thing,
No.
And I've mentioned this before. Dr. Rob does a peer case consultation group for professionals every week online. Professionals literally from all over the world participate. What's the number one topic that they talk about? Formal therapeutic disclosure. It's that challenging even for trained professionals. So making sure that you're setting yourself up for success is you each have your therapist who's supporting you each in the process, that knows what they're doing. If they're newer in the field, they still have some supervisors, that can help support them. So it isn't that they have to have done it, for 20 years. It's like that they have support. If, like Karen mentioned with the previous question, therapists, need to have supervisors, and they need to have their own therapists. So that's how they do work that has integrity, for the long haul. So. Karen, thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for joining and asking great questions. So Dr. Rob will be back, but yeah, it was fun to have ladies night again with you, and I will ask again soon. So
I love having ladies night with you. Bye, y'all.
bye. Thank you.
Take care.